Hello everyone. This is Offensive Colonel here, and in this today's video live stream, we are gonna talk about what is IP address and public and private IP address. And this video is a network management playlist, so you can watch some of the other videos which I'm gonna upload on this YouTube channel, um, including about network management cases. Um, what I am gonna upload on this network management playlist is about the network things, like what network works, how network works, and all stuffs about network, so you will get a better idea. And guys, this video might get lengthy, so please be patient. I can say you that if you understand this overall concept or this video, then you will get a mindset and you can crack any of the interview regarding the networks basics. So this is a network basic. You can't be a network geek with this video. I'm telling you straightforward. There are some things need to be done, and that cannot be possible in one video straightforward. So okay, let's get started with the video. Enough talking. This video, we are first gonna talk on what is IP address. So the IP address, the definition of the IP address as per me, the IP address is the unique number which is allocated to you as you connected to your ISP or the internet globe. That is the definition from my side. So what I mean by that, when you get connected with the internet, you get you are allocated, or you get you have been assigned a IP address, and that is the public IP address. What do you mean by public IP address? The IP address, which this is an IP address. Whenever you go on the other sides can see that this IP address has been visited on me. Whether you have connected with your router via phone or desktop and this all things, the first thing which the website will see that this IP address has been visited at this time or this date. They can also see that which operating system are you using, and what is the platform which are you using, such as like desktop or the phone platform and such, and the other things. But the first thing which comes is the IP address, and that is the public IP address, not your private IP address. The private IP address are being internally managed by your router, and that is used to arrange the devices, and used to communicate between each and another, or router use it for other some tasks. So let me start how you will get to know that what's your public IP address. So if you type on the Google what's my IP, so the Google will provide you that this is your public IP address. Okay, so Google has said that this is your public IP address. If you type there what's my IP, Google doesn't know what's your private IP address is, or might knowing, why they will tell you. And how to know your private IP address? To know your private IP address, you have to open up your terminal in Linux. I will also show you how to see this in your Windows operating system. First of all, let's talk about the Linux, as we are geeks and we are from the IT. We love Linux. Might you guys, some of you guys don't, but I love Linux. If you type here if config, you will get here it's zero because I have only one Ethernet port, and here you can see in that port I have plugged in the Ethernet connection wire with the RJ45, and here you can see in the iNet there is a IP address. So this is the IP address, block of 4. This is a private IP address. Okay, So 192.168.0.153, and that is also netmasks, which we will be covering in the other tutorial about the netmasks and the CIDR value. So here this is your private IP address. What if you wanted to know what's my IP address, private IP address in my um, Windows operating system? What you have to do is you have to just type here IP config. Remember that for Linux it's if config, and um, for Windows operating system it is IP config. There is no space, and if you write ipconfig in Linux it will show as a command not found error, and that's fully legit, because ipconfig doesn't work in Linux operating systems. That is only for Windows and Linux if config, of Windows ipconfig. So this is how you can find your public IP address and private IP address. So I've told you what is IP address. It is the unique identification number used to identify some devices. So for example, that IP address will contain your pinpoint location, and that is also used when you do something wrong on any of the website or somewhere another other places. So people can like the people who are authorized to locate, they can locate you if somebody sues or FIR against you. So for that the reason IP address has been a public IP address has been used, and public IP address will that's it. Public IP address do this all things. But there is one more thing. There is in public IP address there is dynamic IP address and static IP address. In the case of dynamic IP address, whenever you will like restart your devices, or and might possible when you restart your devices you will allocate the same IP address which you have, but sometimes if you restart your devices you will allocated a different IP address. That IP address might be different from the previous IP address which you have allocated. That means that you are having a dynamic IP address. Most of the ISPs, or I should say all the ISPs, provide you the dynamic IP address, because the static IP address comes with a cost. The static IP address will always be static and will not change whether your device get restarted, whether your router gets failed, and any sort of problems your router does or anything. Your IP address will be constant from your ISP, because that is somewhat of another a line which comes from there, and they do some sort of settings from there, and they assign you a special static IP address. This static IP address, you will say that hey offensive, this static IP address, what we will do it. So guys, this static IP address will help you to like launch a web server or host a web server and something sort of that type of things you can do. And like if you wanted to host some files, FTP servers and web servers, if you wanted to take a domain and then you have to connect this with your machine, so you can't do it without the dynamic IP address. Sorry, static IP address. Sorry for my mistake. Without taking the static IP address, you can't do it. With the dynamic IP address, it is not possible. So this was the definition of IP address and the difference between the dynamic and the static IP address. Now coming up to the private and the public IP address. The private IP address is the IP address to identify you within your router, and the public IP address is the IP address which is used to identify you outside the world of router, or your router I should say in particular. So what do I mean by this? why router will assign me a IP address. So as you can see that there are multiple devices in a router. There is no such one device only in a router. Today's routers are coming with 200 or 400 people can get connected to a router. If you change the CIDR value, then you can connect 400 or even 1000 people to a router, but that can't help because you need that much of speed to give such crowd internet. So what I'm trying to say is, first let's talk about the public IP address. So as I've said you about the public IP address, that public IP address will identify you outside the internet. So whenever you visit website, you will be seen by that website that this IP address has been came here. For private IP address, it is something different. um, for example, there is a web server you created in your network, and that web server is having a website, and that website is running. And so how you will get that website? So that website is being connected internally in your network, and it is connected with a router. So that's a good point. So you can try it with your local host, or you can do it via router within your network. So you can access that web server within your network with that IP address, your private IP address. Private IP address basically used in a router or in your within your network to call, or do any of the things with the devices, such as some package came from the outside the world of router, from the global, and it came here inside the inside the router. So router will have to find that which PC needs this packet. So it will like call all of the IP address, and it will ask which IP address need this packet. It will give that packet to that IP address, because there is no such devices. There is no such like one devices in a network or in a router network. There are multiple devices, and multiple devices need multiple packages, as multiple devices are working on multiple things or multiple platforms. So, for example, if device number 1 is working on Facebook, device number 2 working on Gmail, device number 3 working on WhatsApp. So device number 1 will need the packet of Facebook, device number 2 will need the package of Gmail, device number 3 needs the package of WhatsApp. So the device number 1 will need all the package from Facebook. So if he or she is texting he or she another guy or girl, then whatever the message comes in the router, that message needs to be forwarded to the device number 1. Correct. So that's the way they need all the things. So the packet belongs to the Facebook, belongs all the packages of the Facebook need to be forwarded to the device number 1. It is also possible that there are two of the devices using Facebook in same network. Yeah, that's possible, and everything will be done seamlessly. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to get too deep into this, because this is a basic video about the private IP address and public IP address. So just look at this diagram. I will try to explain you with the diagram that okay, let me start it. um, I would show you some IP. La, 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 la. Okay, here is a wonderful diagram. No, I need this in a new tab. View image. Okay, that's fine. So here you can see is a this is by the way from readme.io, and I don't know the sender name or the uploader name, I should say specific, but I'm using this image, and this is a totally I have not made this image. So here is a remote user, or I should say the ISP, um, or leave this person. Just see this internet, and here is your router. Here is your local user, the server. You can see this. This can be your web server. This can be your FTP server, and this is your local user. This can be your computer. So think about this, that you have this computer. You assigned the router has assigned you a private IP address, and router have this IP address. This is the you can say, no, this example is not right actually. Yeah, this example is perfect. So here we can see that this image is not actually that wonderful, but this is an old image, and old is gold. So let's use this image. Here you can see that here is the this is the router or switch. In this case this is a switch, and this switch, and here is the internet is connected. Internet wire has came here with this switch, and switch here is the router 1, and here is the router 2. So they have connected. This is a, actually I should say, a office network. So what I can do is I can say you that leave this area, this second router area, just remember this. So for example, and also leave this switch. Just think about it that this internet connection is directly been connected to the router. So the router has connected to LAN connection wired. So we can say that this is a PC number 1, PC number 2. So PC number 1 is connected to the router, PC number 2 is also connected to the router, and they had also assigned IP address, that is 192.168.0.2.x. So I should say that 2.101 and 2.102 here for them, and they two are being connected with this router, and router is directly connected to the internet. So whenever this LAN number 2 or PC LAN number 1 or PC number 1 is talking to the Facebook via message, then this package will go to this router, and this router will send that package to the internet. We are not talking about the packages, as I haven't mentioned it in the video, but yeah, let's talk about it because you can get a better understanding, and that will go to the Facebook, and Facebook do all the processing, and whenever he or she, the other person, will message you, that package will come here, and it will ask for the it will go in the router, and the router will ask the router will see that who needs this package, and then the router will give that package to the particular PC, like here in case PC number 1, and the PC number 1 will get the package. This is how the package works, and this is why the private IP address is needed. Outside the world, this PC1, PC2 carries the same public IP address, but inside the world of a router, the PC number 1, PC number 2 have the same have the different IP address or private IP address, I should mention. So that's it for the video. This was about what is IP address, and what is public IP address and private IP address, and this was also a playlist in the network management, and you can follow me for more of the network management. I hope I have made to the point what I have trying to say. In the further video I will try also to clarify more of this stuff in a more easier way. Next time I will try to make my own images. This is rather be, let's hope for the best. This video might have gone best. Hope to see you in the next